Hello, everybody. So, we are going to be talking about Martin Luther King Jr. today, okay? Because we have Martin Luther King Jr. Day coming up, and I want you guys to be prepared and to know who he is and why we are celebrating, okay? So, Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15th, 1929, in Atlanta, Georgia. He was an African American man born into a time of segregation. And does anyone know what segregation means? It's kind of a big word. Okay, it's keeping people separate because of race or ethnicity. Okay, meaning where you come from, the color of your skin, the culture that you have. Okay, he became a Baptist minister in 1948. And a minister is someone who teaches their congregation or a group of people about religion through sermons, worship, and music. So when you go to church, you probably have a minister or a priest who does this. Okay, so that's what he went to school for. He studied at Boston University, where he earned his doctorate degree. That's another big word. So a doctorate means that you have studied something and you're a professional in that. So he earned the name Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You'll hear people call him that too. And he's not necessarily a doctor as in a medical doctor. He was a doctor in ministry and the studies of that. So he was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And eventually, he and his family settled down in Montgomery, Alabama. Okay. So the civil rights movement was the main thing that happened during this time. So what is it? It was a peaceful protest. And what is a peaceful protest? It means that people marched and had signs, as you can see in the picture, and they did it peacefully. There was no violence. And it was a movement organized by Black Americans that set into motion the end of racial discrimination. And there we go. There's another big word. These highlighted words are vocabulary words that we'll go over at the end. And discrimination means unfair treatment of a person or group of people. And that's what was happening. The Blacks were being separated, right? And to gain equal rights under the law. Okay. So why is this important? Because everybody deserves to have equal rights and to live comfortably and free as a U.S. citizen. So we have some more events that kind of led up to it and that happened after. So we have Rosa Parks, and that might be a familiar name to some of you. So what do you know about her story? Okay, I heard some pretty good answers. An African American woman who refused to give up her seat on the bus for a white man. She was arrested. However, this was the start of the civil rights movement. Okay, and there's our highlighted word, so that's also going to be one of our vocab words. And then the Montgomery bus boycott was the next event. So after Rosa Parks' experience with the city bus, a boycott was announced in Black churches in Montgomery, Alabama. And what's a boycott? What does that word mean? So a boycott means you refuse to participate in something or you refuse to support something. So 40,000 Black bus riders rejected rides from the bus. And ultimately, this brought about a change and buses were integrated. Now, integrated is another big word, and that just means that Blacks and whites could both be on the bus and sit wherever they wanted. March on Washington in August 1963, 25,000 people marched to the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. The goal of this event was to bring awareness to inequalities and hardships for African Americans. This is where Martin Luther King gave his famous I Have a Dream speech. And we're going to talk a little bit about that right here. So his I have a dream speech. Okay. So what did Martin Luther King Jr. say in his famous speech? He said a lot of things, and we're just going to talk about the main points because it's kind of a long speech. So the main points in that he called for equality, and equality means when people are treated the same regardless of what they look like or where they come from. So it's the opposite of discrimination. He pointed out the promises made in the Declaration of Independence for all Americans, and he called for the end of segregation and discrimination. And some of his dreams that he shared for America was the American dream, meaning everybody's dream of living in the United States, of being free and being able to speak your mind and having a safe place to raise a family and food and worship whatever religion you want to. Okay. Former slaves and slave owners will sit down together at a table of brotherhood. Okay. So before Martin Luther King's time, they were slaves. Blacks were slaves all over the world, and slave owners were not always the best people. And so he wants them to be able to sit down together and come together as one. And then Mississippi will become into a place of freedom and justice, that his children will be judged by their character and not their skin color, and that Alabama can be rid of racism. Okay, now we're going to watch a little bit of a video.
Once upon a time, there's a man named Martin Luther King Jr. It's funny to think about because now we know his name so well, but at one time he was just a kid. Like maybe you're a kid watching this. Well, he was a kid too. Well, maybe you're a grown-up. That's okay too. Former kids are welcome here. I don't discriminate. Martin Luther King grew up to be a great man, of course, but things weren't all that great in the world while he was growing up. Not everybody was treated like they were somebody. And I believe that you should treat everybody like it's their birthday. But they didn't do that. People looked at the color of their skin. And that's how they decided if they were friends or not. Not cool, man. That didn't make him feel good. That didn't make anybody feel good. But his parents helped him grow up. He went to church. He learned about love. He grew up to be a minister to help a lot of people. He did all sorts of cool stuff. He helped a lot of people learn about love too. But still, he looked around and said, things should be better. He wanted to change things, so he did stuff. He decided, instead of spreading the hate, he would spread the love. He wanted to bring people together. Where people were hurting, he stepped in to help. He marched with them. He walked with them. He walked arm in arm with everyone. And sometimes it didn't go well, but he kept going. Sometimes he ended up in prison, but he kept going. Some people didn't like him, but he kept going. Some days were hard, but he kept going. Love does that. It just keeps going, even when things are dark. And, well, I don't like this part of the story, but things did get pretty dark. Someone who didn't agree with him shot him. He died in April 1968. Now, keep pressing it. Why are you telling us this sad story? Come on. I know. I'm sorry, but it happened. I don't like that happened. Now, I gotta tell you something. When things aren't awesome, it can be tough. And things will always be awesome, but your response can be. Martin Luther King's response? It was awesome. Today I just wanted us to think about this. Isn't it cool that we can change things? Like any of us, anybody. He dreamed and he changed things. And he dreamed and he kept sharing his dreams. They became not just his dream, a lot of people's dream. Like this one. I have a dream that little black boys and black girls will join hands with white boys and white girls and become sisters and brothers. That's a pretty good dream. Let's dream like that. That could change things.
So I hope you learned a little bit more about who he was and what his dreams were. So last couple things. So here's our vocabulary list. So we have Martin Luther King Jr. We know he was a civil rights activist who shared his dream that one day everyone would be treated as equals. And we have civil rights, freedoms granted to citizens by a government. equality, when people are treated the same regardless of what they look like or where they come from. The I Have a Dream speech, and all you need to know is it was the name of his famous speech. Montgomery bus boycott, a mass protest against segregation on the city buses, March on Washington, protesting without violence or destruction, segregation, keeping people separate because of race or ethnicity, discrimination, unfair treatment of a person or group of people, and integration, making a place available to people of all races and ethnic groups. Okay. So the last thing, we have an activity. We are going to make these cute I Have a Dream clouds, and all you need for it is a cloud, and we have a bunch of different colors of the rainbow for your cloud, and you are going to write what dreams you have on these, okay? So that's what we're going to do next, and it should turn out like this. And I hope you learned about Martin Luther King Jr. and you can understand why we are going to be celebrating that day. So let's move into the activity.